Bene, ben ritrovati. Con il titolo Un silenzio assordante, un rumore inquietante, riprendiamo il nostro percorso e questa volta la relatrice è Julia Heimerdinger, che è musicologa, lavora presso l'Institut für Musikwissenschaft und Interpretationsforschung der Universität für Musik und Darstellende Kunst di Vienna. Da Vienna è venuta per noi e ci propone un percorso in dialogo con i film che saranno parzialmente in italiano, lei ci parlerà invece in inglese. Grazie Giulia di essere venuta qua per noi. Dankeschön.
Grazie, and thank you very much for this invitation to be here in this really special place. It's marvelous and the weather, and we'll see some of the weather later on, I hope so. So, I'm sorry that I will speak in English, but
just keep in the microphone. Yes.
Okay. It's better like this?
Yes.
So, I won't repeat, but I wanted to thank you. So, I start with my presentation. In my presentation, I would like to talk about 4 different appearances of noise and sound in film. Naturally, these selected appearances, these examples I took with me, do not in any way represent the complete spectrum, but they show some possibilities of noise and sound contributing to a film in displaying or depicting a surrogate reality and in creating aesthetic experience, in producing illusions, in invading the beyond, or reproducing emotional states, and many more. As the flow of images and the narrative in film do generally occupy consciousness much stronger than sound and music, sound and music work quite effectively on the unconscious plane. That's an experience you will all have made when you watched a film, that you can remember what has been told, you remember faces, but maybe you don't remember what you heard musically and concerning the noises. Broadly speaking, sound and noise have a special or a singular nature insofar as it is, in contrast to dialogue or music, always present in some form or another. You have speech, dialogue, you have music, which is happening at some points, but noise is always there, even if it's not present, like in silence. Broadly speaking, sound effects can further be specified in 2 domains, which is already expressed with a parenthesis, so that you say, what is the sound of a film? It's sound or sound effects. So one is called ambient sound. One could also say the ground layer, the ground sound of a film. And on the other hand, the sound effects, so more the event-like sounds or noises. So this is the 2 main domains of sound. So much about a little technical jargon for the moment. In order to describe what is done with sound and what sound does in film, clips from my 4 selected films, I will, next to my own words, of course, use a couple of suitable glossaries as well as some terms coined by the French composer and researcher Michel Chion. Michel Chion has developed a quite interesting vocabulary for film sound in the course of many of his publications since the 1980s. Which he condensed to a paper called 100 Concepts to Think and Describe Sound Cinema, which I can really recommend to read. I will pick some of this vocabulary because it's very, very interesting and very suitable in some points. So anyway, I will now come to my first example of a very basic appearance of film sound, the so-called atmosphere, or ambience or ambient sound. This is 3 different terms for the same thing. So, as you know, atmosphere is kind of a sound recording of general environmental sounds, like traffic, bird song, wind noise, and the like. So everything that is just happening, you wouldn't probably ask where it's coming from. So even a quiet room has an acoustic atmosphere, as you have experienced today already. There's some events coming in. So Atmo recordings, so-called Atmo recordings, are made while filming, and they are used to later supplement scenic moods. So if you register a dialogue and you play it, it would sound artificial. And then you have the atmo of a room. You can add on it as a layer, so it sounds, for example, natural in the room. But of course, you can play with this too. You can change the ambience. And this is a means in film that is often used, and we will see some of it now. So yeah, I would say we'll have a look at this first example, and it's from a series called Heimat by Edgar Reitz. Maybe some of you know it. It's showing a filming of a film scene and the recording of Atmo. We will first have a look.
Moment, wir müssen noch eine Raumatmo machen. Raumatmo! Raumatmo!
Sehen Sie, wie eigenartig der Raum sich verfärbt. So machen wir das beim Film. E-Fach werden Sie sagen, aber da schätzen Sie die Colortechnik falsch ein. Ein ganz komplizierter Vorgang ist das. Soll ich Ihnen mal sagen, was Sie nachher im Kino sehen? Ein komplettes Bild des Zerfalls. Und nun denken Sie mal an den Atomkrieg.
Ruhe bitte jetzt! Raumatmo! Keine Bewegung!
Atmo. Danke. Dankeschön.
So you see, it was 2 minutes where silence was wished, but of course it is not possible. There's people in the room, and they want to record it with people in the room because the room sounds differently if it's full of people, different from an empty room with no furniture or anything. So, and you have this like ambivalent or multifold term of atmosphere also, because you see you see flirting, you see funny accidents, you see people who are not willing to keep the silence. So this all adds to this atmosphere, which is of course happening on not only on the acoustic plane here in this film scene. But anyway, why do you record these atmos? Aesthetically, it has several functions. So when it is added to the dialogue, there is in the end no sound break, and you would realize a sound break. Even when the conversation pauses, because the silence would be heard and the silence would be wrong. So you create the right silence. So that's a difference to some silence. Ambient sound is very rarely suspended. So in moments of subjective sound, when a protagonist's sense of hearing is absent, or in symbolically important scenes, such as a scene in which the background noise is omitted as if to underscore the significance of the scene for the protagonist. So to put it together, and to put it in Michel Chian's word, ambient sound, and he also calls it territory sound, is a sound that envelopes a scene. It inhabits the space without raising the question of the location of its specific source in the image. But of course, this can be blurred and distorted, and we'll see an interesting example for this now. So my second film clip is a very interesting example for the distortion of an atmo or ambience. And this is an effect that Michel Chian calls suspension. So in a fictional scene that normally has a certain ambient sound, like sounds of the country or sounds of the city and so on, the suspension consists of interrupting those sounds, even suppressing them from the outset, to mute it. Although the causes of those sounds continue to exist in the image and action, so you still see somebody walking, but you can't hear it anymore. So the effect of this is often very mysterious and menacing, sometimes a sort of poetic suspension or rendering the world unreal. So I have an example from Kwaidan, from the film Kwaidan by Masaki Kobayashi from 1964. And the soundtrack for this has been composed by the avant-garde and composer Toru Takemitsu, who really was also in the concrete music. It is a very interesting example for suspension and the use of silence, which in this case also, because it's a Japanese film, and here it has also to do with the Japanese concept of ma, meaning emptiness, that is especially denoting the space between structural parts. But it also transcends conventional distinctions between underscore and sound effects. So here the music is the sound and the sound is the music, kind of. I will show the last part of the film's episode called The Black Hair. So short on the synopsis: a man who has left his beloved wife to marry a richer woman returns after some time to his old home and meets his former wife, who lets him in willingly. And when he awakes in the morning, he realizes that only her skeleton and the long black hair are left. So she's dead since a long time. And he now realizes that he has seen a ghost in the night before. During his unsuccessful escape from the hair attacking him over and over again, he bangs on wooden walls, he falls over and breaks through the floorboards, aging into an old man within minutes. So I would say we have a look at the clip now, and I will talk about this afterwards again. Now. The scene is, as you saw, largely muted. That is, the original ambience is suspended. One only hears chronologically staggered, non-synchronous and electronically modified concrete noises of cracking wood. That's the material Takemitsu used, so the material that is in the room. But additionally, he used breaking ice to give it another sound as well on top, as well as a sustained tones played by a traditional Japanese instrument, the kokyu, which is a bowed lute used as the passionate signature sound for the animated hair, signifying the deserted wife, of course. So Takemitsu wanted to produce special sounds for the eerie scenes and to create an atmosphere of terror, and did this quite effectively on the basis of these musique concrète techniques. So the reduced use of sounds and noises, but most notably the increasing decoupling of the images and noises, give rise to a very distinct, very bewildering atmosphere of the scene. So the sound ambience that is inhabiting the visible we see here, seems to represent the afterworld, the beyond, where the echoes of the mortal world that is about to end for this guy too, as I think, that sound reverberate in this afterworld ambience. So as we are already on the trail of horror film, I will continue my examples with another Japanese movie, being very creative with sound too, from 1998. This is an example for maybe very intruding or awe-inspiring sound. So another technique that is used often in film is to cause fear. Well-placed normal noises can be absolutely sufficient. Typical kinds of such noises are wind, rain, the ticking of a clock, steps, knocks, or telephone ring. Often such noises are set in a way that their sources are either not shown or even not identifiable, counting on the effect that an indefinable noise is harder to take and gives you a little thrill than one with a locatable source. You all know that you have a nightly house and there's some noise, you can't tell where it's coming from, and yeah. Briefly about the plot of the film. The young journalist Asakawa investigates a mysterious videotape of which it is said that one will die exactly 7 days after watching it. In fact, Asakawa's niece dies exactly 1 week after she has watched the film with her friends on a trip to a small town resort, and Asakawa travels there and watches the video, a short, strange film which one would actually rather expect at an art exhibition. It is really not. You will see it anyway. It has very strong static noise and very disturbing sound effects. Moreover, please focus on this, moreover the ambience of the room ambience changes in the moment when the video starts. So I would ask you to play this. This one? Yes, thank you. So unfortunately, you couldn't hear the telephone ring that is coming. That's the evil telephone call, but you can imagine it, I guess. So Asakawa is now in mortal fear, and she calls her former husband Ryuichi to her aid, and together they find out that the woman on the video, that is combing her hair, is the missing daughter of a clairvoyant who supposedly had the ability to kill people at will. Together they try to lift the curse by exhuming the girl's dead body from a well, and you see a well in the video, which turns out to be totally ineffective. In the end, Ryuji is literally scared to death by the girl's ghost climbing out of the TV set. So she materializes out of this TV set. The ghost's presence is always acoustically signaled with a metallic scratching. Besides that, one hears mainly hissing for long periods of the film. So the main hissing, like a main theme in music, stems from this TV set where the ghost later on visualizes and then finally materializes. So in the course of the film, different variants of hissing follow, their sources bearing more or less relation to the girl's personal history. And water, next to this hissing on the TV set, water plays a main part because it's a really similar sound. We hear the hissing of rain, of wells and a fountain, of a river, of the sea, and of the traffic. So I would like to show just 3 examples of this permanent hissing in this film. Maybe we start with a Hiyochi im Regen. That was part of the movie. So this extra sound was not in the movie, by the way. Maybe one more? Maybe. Or this one. Yes. So there's really many more examples. I can't play them all now because of the short time. So on the one hand, this hissing has a symbolic or at least a referencing aspect. As a form of superhuman or overly powerful elemental force, it is always present, like the water in different forms. There you later see the sea too in a storm. So the human being is not able to ultimately control this force, and he's basically at the mercy of it. So this is something you unconsciously realize over the run of the film. So on the other hand, the permanent background hissing like road traffic has a direct impact and is often perceived as unnerving noise pollution, as we have learned before. So I switch to my 4th example. Yeah? Okay, so it is from Antonioni's Deserto Rosso and concerns another thing, that is sound ambiguity and sound reverberating mental states. So while this other sound more represented forces, general forces, become to like psychological sounds now. So the protagonist is Juliana, the wife of a factory owner who suffers from anxiety since a harmless car accident. She tries to open a store in the town, but gets nowhere and starts an affair with a friend of her husband, with whom she does not get close either. Her her little son pretends to be paralyzed, not to be able to walk, which she seems to use to act out Juliana's condition. The scenery of the film is characterized by coolness and lack of movement. The buildings and the landscape are kept in cold colors, and only individual details are highlighted with color. The barrels in front of the factory, a pink flower on a meadow in front of a housing complex. In the course of the film, electronic sounds by Vittorio Gelmetti are sprinkled into the space, like the colors on the objects. The sounds have an ambivalent effect. They sound hard, cold, and hollow, and thus characterize the area's atmosphere on the one hand, but could also be alienated ship horns from the tankers, from the boats that pass by in the background repeatedly. But at the same time, they seem like a reflection of Juliana's state of mind, her rigidity and emptiness, as if these sounds are or could be the sound of her tinnitus. Of course, very stylized tinnitus. So I would, yes, please.
Ho sognato che ero a letto e il letto si muoveva. Ho guardato ed era sulle sabbie mobili.
Ma no.
Andava giù, sempre più giù. No.
Ich habe geträumt. Ich liege im Bett. Und das Bett bewegt sich. Unheimlich.
Maybe, ist es jetzt auch, ne? I should come to a close. Ja, ja, okay. So,
Aiutami. Aiutami, ti prego. Io ho paura di non farcela. Ho paura.
Non fare così. Calmati. Perché hai paura di che cosa?
Delle strade, delle fabbriche, dei colori, della gente, di tutto.
So, as you see, these are really kind of connecting to her acting and to her state. But if you see the whole movie, and I guess many of you know the movie, you know that is also shown in outside and so on. So yeah, I will show one last clip of this. That is the moment in the end of the film when she's kind of fine. Yeah. So she's with her son, and they're in front of the factory, and somehow she found a little peace with it. So these sounds that you heard here, they stop. You only hear the ambience. No, it's this one. No. Sorry. Fine. It's okay.
Valerius, komm, wir wollen gehen.
Warum?
So here you see that the sound of what was projected a little into her mind has now on the exterior. It is changed to the exterior. So this was my last example. Of course, we could go on for a long time for different ways of working, playing with sound in film. But I hope that I could show you some of the ways that it's done. And thank you for your attention.